Did Cody finally take accountability for something this time?
Not really. Most of this episode felt like one long blame game, especially when it came to Meri.
We're breaking down part 1 of the one-on-one interviews where Cody dances around responsibility, rewrites history, and avoids owning up to how his relationship with Meri really ended.
If you've ever watched Cody contradict himself and thought, wait, didn't he just say the opposite last season? Then you're going to want to stick around.
Let's get into it. Hey everyone, and welcome back. My name is Sam.
And I'm Melissa.
I was raised in a family with 4 moms and 35 kids. We were members of the FLDS church, which is a polygamous group run by their prophet Warren Jeffs, who is now serving a life sentence in prison.
I was raised mainstream LDS in Utah. Sam and I have been married for 10 years and have 2 awesome kiddos.
Yes, we do. We are back at it today for the first part of the one-on-ones for season 19 of Sister Wives. And it was interesting to me just seeing how they kind of wrapped up the season with Garrison and all of that emotional stuff, and then just jumping right back into
all the drama,
and just right back to blaming and back and forth between them, and one person saying one thing and the other person saying the exact opposite,
or saying that's just a lie.
Or that's just a lie. So it seemed like that with the very tragic thing that happened to the Brown family, that they were in a way coming together and starting to get along a little bit, but I guess not.
No, I was glad that they said that they weren't going to talk about Garrison in the one-on-ones. I was like, that's good. It felt like that needed to be put to rest as well and not be dragged out for so long that it felt like they were getting over publicizing a tragedy
or taking advantage of
that. So I'm glad that they said they weren't going to talk about it, but you're so right. It went straight back to drama. And I was like, oh my gosh, here we go. And also, I feel like season 19 felt so long.
It did. Well, it was long. This is episode 26, I believe.
Yes. And it just, because it had the break, and I don't know, when they were starting to talk about things, I'm like, this was forever ago, it feels like. Why are we still harping on this? But it's all because it's still in the same season.
Right. We couldn't believe when they first jumped into the showing the clips that it was in this season.
Yeah.
We thought, wait, wasn't this last season? But yes, it's just been a lot. But there was so many things that were brought up already in this first episode. I'm glad they split it into 2 different ones so that they could really touch on a lot of the different things throughout this season.
Yeah, well, and they always do such a good job, asking the hard questions. Suki does a really great job. And I love that she even asked Cody, at one point, do you feel like the villain, Cody? And he's like, I feel like I'm villainized, right? And the whole first part was really about, Cody, is he the villain or is he not the villain? And kind of calling him out for all of his things that he's been saying in the past and whether or not that's the truth or the things he's saying now is the truth. And I had to put this down. He said, I go through 5. He said this, not her, too, which also surprised me.
Who's her?
Cody, not Suki. Not Suki. Cody said, I go through 5 iterations of truth and pick one. So he goes through 5 iterations of the truth and he picks one. And that's what he said. And I was like, that's a really good way to say it, except for I don't know if any of them are true. He just goes through whatever's convenient or whatever pops out of his mouth at the time.
Yeah, he even said, he admitted as well that he just says things. He says, my mouth just runs. What did he say? My mouth runs fluidly or something like that.
Yeah.
And sometimes I say stupid stuff. And so it's easy to pick on someone that doesn't have a filter, which... Yes, agreed.
Yeah.
It's very easy to pick on him because not only does he not have a filter, but he is always contradicting. And I appreciate that Suki in a couple different instances throughout this episode pointed out, oh, you just contradicted yourself here. Right.
Yeah.
So I was glad that she is not just letting him get away with it.
And not just from clips in past seasons to now, but while he's sitting there talking to her, he'll contradict himself as well. So he talks himself in circles to the point, and I mean, he even said this at one point, but then he lost the accountability portion, because I think what he was trying to say was when you're being filmed and you're in the heat of the moment, you're going to say certain things, and if everyone had to look back and have a recap of what they had said in the past, everyone would look like they kind of contradict themselves a little bit.
People do change their
ideas. Yes. And you may say something when you're angry and be like, oh, I hope no one ever hears about that. Or we all have a little bit of that. But 2 things. One, we're not choosing to blast like our lives publicly in that way and have a camera around us all the time. So since he is, you'd think they'd be a little extra cautious about that. And I feel like the wives are more than what he is. But the main thing that bothered me, I'm like, okay, I understand that you've got a camera on you all the time. But he said, it's hard to be accountable for things you say when you're so passionate. And I'm like, you can't lose accountability for what you said just because what you said in the past isn't what you meant or you were heated. Like then you say, man, I am so sorry I said that. I was in the heat of the moment. I was really hurt. I said something and I didn't mean it. But he doesn't. He doesn't take the accountability for it. Instead, he just says, well, there's 5 versions of the truth and I just picked that one that day. Like what?
There can't be there can't be 5 versions of the truth when none of them have the same answer to it. Right? Like one of them has to be the truth. And the rest of them are lies. So you can't just pick one of like, okay, I've got 4 lies here and 1 truth. Let's pick that lie today, right? Like that's not. And it's very obvious that between the wives and Cody, they have different versions of what they believe is the truth. And that was brought up as well.
Yeah.
But at the same time, someone's got to be lying here because the answers to these questions are not the same between Cody and the wives.
Yeah, and I did like that the wives who have all divorced Cody, there was like certain instances where I think Meri said, I don't remember that, but if that's how Christine remembers it, I'm not going to say that she's wrong. And I was like, that's a good way to handle it. Just because I don't remember the same thing somebody else does doesn't mean instantly that they're a liar.
Right.
Because those two things don't have to be hand in hand, right? Like I can have my experience and have be different than yours. And that doesn't mean that one person's right and one person's wrong. So I thought Meri handled that really well. She also did say, she's like, you can change your mind. This was about Cody. Meri was saying, she said, you can change your mind. That's okay. But you can't change the past. And I was like, that's the perfect way to say it. Like it's not that, again, it's the lack of accountability, right? It doesn't matter if you change your mind and you're like, oh, you know what? I said that. I was hurt. I didn't really feel that way. I was being mean. I'm sorry. I'm sorry would go a long way too, right? Like, oh, that's not what I really meant, or anything to take some accountability and say, or that's not how I feel anymore. I felt like that then, but then I realized blah, 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 blah. And so now I feel this other way. But he doesn't even try to say that either. He doesn't try to say that he's progressed somehow and mostly doesn't take accountability for what he said in the past. And when he's watching these clips, like they're showing him like, this is what you said. And then this is what you said to Robin. And then this is what you're saying now. And even when he sees the clips, he didn't even seem fazed by it. He was like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I can see.
I can see that. I can see how that happened. I'm just like, what? It was crazy.
Yeah, this episode focused a lot on Cody's and Meri's relationship, and I almost felt bad for both Christine and Janelle because in so many of the questions that they were being asked, Suki would say things like, so what did you think about this and this between Cody and Meri? Right? Like it was a lot of questions about Cody and Meri's relationship, which there were some things that came out that I think were important to talk about, but this seems to be the main focus was on them. And it was interesting to see that Robin wouldn't even watch the clips. Like she just basically was like, hey, leave me out of this.
And Suki called her out on it and was like, so why don't you watch these? And I think she said, they're too destructive. They're too toxic for me to watch. Like they're not, they don't help in anything. Like I don't want to watch them at all. So she's always kind of looking down instead of actually watching the clips or react to them. But a lot of the story of Meri ties into the story with Robin, right?
Yeah.
Because they talked a lot about whether or not Cody respected all the wives, because when Cody talked about, I don't want to be blamed for loving Robin. And I feel like at this point, all the other wives have said at some point throughout these last couple seasons, Cody found his person. He fell in love with Robin. And that part isn't even the hurtful part. Like they all kind of understand that on some weird level of like, we get that. And that's not actually the problem. The problem is that you treated us all lesser than, and you weren't living plural marriage in a fair way because you loved Robin. And they've all said that in their own different ways. And they kind of mentioned that again here. But then when Suki was asking Cody, like, oh, well, yeah, but you were living plural marriage, so that's not fair. And him talking about trying to, oh no, once I had that love, I was trying to elevate all my other relationships. And Christine's reaction was perfect when she was like, level us up, what, to be like Robin? Like, that goes against everything plural marriage is. The idea that you'd have to have all of them be like, you need equity, but it's not equally. Like everybody's not the same person. It could never truly be that way. And so to try to make your other relationships like they are with one.
Yeah, you shouldn't even expect in a polygamous marriage or relationship, you shouldn't even expect to treat all of the wives equally or the same.
Yeah.
You should be spending as much time with each of them. You should be, giving as much attention to the other wives and their kids and being as involved. But as we heard multiple times, and once again in this episode, once Robin came around, this elevating his relationship with the other wives was him stepping away and not being around as much. So I'm with them. I'm thinking, okay, how did you expect to have a better relationship with these other women if you weren't around to? And he keeps saying that he was giving equal time. But every one of the other wives, except for Robin, of course, have said no. He absolutely was at Robin's house way more than he was at our houses.
Yeah. So that's one of those where I'm like, that's 3 against, I'd say 1, but I guess 3 against him and Robin, right?
Speaking of 3 against 1.
Yeah. But I think that like, especially maybe in Vegas, it was a little bit more equally distributed of time. Yeah. But it definitely seemed like as soon as they moved to Flagstaff, the other wives talked about, even before COVID, just the fact that there was so much physical distance and there was so much driving house to house that it just wasn't a thing anymore. So for him to try to claim that he was working on those relationships in that way was, all the other wives were just laughing. And Cody trying to say like, oh, well, Meri kicked me out in Vegas and I never went back. So it's on her.
Yeah, there's a whole story there that we're only getting a small piece of, where I guess their relationship was put on pause or something when Meri said, hey, I don't want you here at my house. It seems like Cody is putting all the blame on Meri that, maybe she was having some kind of
because of the catfishing thing.
Affair, but and that the catfishing thing is a big part of it, but I just have to think that there's got to be more to Meri's side of the story here, rather than just one day Cody shows up and Meri is laughing and giggling and talking to someone else in the other room, and then all of a sudden he's kicked out of the house. That can't be anywhere close to the whole story.
Yeah, it's definitely, Cody even said himself, he's like, we'll never agree on why our relationship ended. And I think the hard thing too is like, there wasn't one thing and then the relationship ended because it dragged out for so long. Then you're trying to remember feelings and events from so long ago. Like the catfishing thing was so long ago. So if you're trying to like replay, nobody has that great of a memory to be able to go back and put themselves back exactly how they felt 10 years ago and remember exactly the reason why or what led up to it and all those emotions. So because that was so far in the past as well, and then they just let it linger for so long, I'm like, not only are they going to just blame each other and not really know, but it's just too long of like indifference towards each other. And of course, it got dragged out way too long. The fact that Cody said that he was scared of what Meri would do. And Meri and Janelle are like what? Christine was the only one who was like, we didn't know how Meri was going to handle things in certain situations. Yeah. But then she instantly said, like, after saying that, so you could kind of tell she kind of understood what Cody was talking about. And then she flipped and said, but I'm not going to say anything negative about Meri in that instance.
Yeah, I simply wonder if it was Cody was afraid that Meri was going to say too much. When he says, I'm afraid of what she would do, I think...
I hadn't thought of that.
I think it was simply, if Meri just says everything and just lets it all out there, if she's willing to do that and destroy everyone, depending on how angry she gets. And it was also, and then this is why I think of this, is it was also brought up that Meri likes to talk with her friends and talk about the relationship between her and Cody with her friends. And so that's something else, is if she starts talking about all of these things with her friends, and then that turns into public talking and communicating, then it could be really bad. So that's simply what I think it was.
Yeah, I never thought about the fact that obviously we know we're seeing like portions of their lives, but there's a lot more that happens behind the scenes, right? And there's some of you who follow way better than we do what happens like on Instagram and all their social media and stuff, right? There's so many things too, but even then you're still showing on social media what you want to be seen. So there's lots of stuff behind. I had never thought about the fact that like the things she could talk about Cody or the family that isn't public, that being used as a weapon.
Yes.
Like I hadn't thought about that.
Sister Wives, the show Sister Wives is the tip of the iceberg for sure.
Yeah.
There's always so much. And even though they have all of these episodes and all of these seasons and all of this time, they're still only like, if you were to compile all of that time, they are living the majority of their lives without a camera on them.
Yeah.
Right? Like the camera on them isn't that much of their life, considering how much day-to-day normal boring life stuff that they deal with and go through, and maybe some very juicy fighting and things that that happen behind those cameras, or when the cameras aren't on them as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It was interesting that Meri mentioned the fact that she wondered if the legal divorce was part of a plan to be able to keep her from harming Cody, or like there being a portion of the divorce then, which again, going with like, she might have had information, but she also, since she was legally married to him, I wonder if he thought like, oh, if we divorce now and things are still good, I'm not going to have to like lose half of my estate, in the way that a typical divorce after 20 years, you'd be splitting assets. There'd be a huge deal. When Meri finally left, like she wasn't getting anything. Like they had been legally divorced for 10 years.
Right.
So it's kind of like, okay, I wonder when he says, I was afraid of what she might do, would that have been like legal repercussions and financial repercussions that she would have had the ability to do in a legal divorce out of anger versus the separation that happened 10 years later after a legal divorce.
Right. And that's something that we often wonder if Meri would have left Cody a lot sooner had she been legally married, but because she wasn't, she was going to be, because she gave up that legal marriage, I don't know if she was that willing to, but because it happened, just leaving the family meant she was leaving with nothing, basically, because she was no longer legally tied to that. But
and if the end of their relationship had ended with a legal divorce, she would have been entitled to things, which we've talked before to other people who practice plural marriage or believe in it, that have talked about why it should be legalized so that every woman can be married to the man, so they have some legal right or claim to their property and their finances and things too.
Now wasn't
it Benjamin who said that?
There is some there is some law out there, and I don't know if it's in every state, that if you are together, even if you're not legally married, if you spend a certain amount of time living together, that there is some kind of law in place that you have to share.
But how would you do that in a plural situation though?
That's where
how could you prove it?
That can
and
get
if
tricky,
your time's
because
now 25% because of 4 women,
right,
is that going to be enough to be able to carry in that kind of law?
Not to mention that plural marriage is illegal.
So you're not going to admit to it.
You're not going to go to the judge with that, and say, "Hey, I'm living illegally. Can you help me out here?" Yeah, here, have some handcuffs.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's very tricky when it comes to plural marriage, for sure. But I do wonder if Meri would have, just left a lot sooner if she had been able to leave and take something with her. Yeah. As opposed to just leaving everything behind.
Yeah, and the legal ties is something that Janelle has specifically talked about before as well. The fact that she felt like she wasn't entitled to any estate, that she, she's having to fight and get a lawyer even to deal with Coyote Pass. And it's been something that Janelle, you could tell, I think Janelle might have left sooner too if she had been able to she felt like she was trying for a while there to start creating things that were hers before she even left. Right. And then the first thing that happens when she finally washes her hands of Cody is go get property with Maddie and Caleb and trying to be able to start fresh and actually have something of her own. But when she was in that apartment, she was like, I realized I don't have anything. There's nothing for me, and it was fun to watch her rile up Cody when Cody had to watch Janelle in one of the clips talk about how she feels like it's a part of his ego that feels like a failure, like he was a failure at plural marriage, and that's going to hurt his ego, and that's probably why he's so angry and why he says, I never loved any of them, and says all these hurtful things. And then Cody got super defensive and was like, it's not my ego. What did he say? me not wanting to give up on Janelle was about my children, not about my ego. And then Janelle gets to watch that clip. I always wonder what order they do these clips in.
Yeah, we'll never know.
Like, what order do they do these interviews? Because you can tell that some of them get to watch pieces of each other's interview. So I'm like, is it a rotation of the couches and they're back in the like green room together or something? Or is it like separate days? I don't know.
They're all in the other room sipping coffee together.
Sipping coffee, watching each other's interviews.
This is all just for show. They're actually really good friends.
But Janelle clearly watches like Cody's reaction or like watches those clips, and it seemed like she watched his reaction, and she just doubles down. She's like, he can say it's not about his ego, but like he is a failure at plural marriage. Like if 3 wives leave you failed at plural marriage, right? And what did Christine say? I think each of them were talking a little bit about whether or not he was a failure. And Robin said, well, we're all failures because they were all relationships that were all supposed to work. We were all committed to it. So it's not just Kody failing, it is all of us. And they gave a sneak peek at the fact that next week, I think we're going to hear more about how the religious aspect of the responsibility of the man in a plural marriage to keep it together is a huge thing, especially in the AUB. Which looks like that's going to be next week's conversation.
100%. And I'm glad they're going to get into it more, hopefully, because easy for Robin to say that, oh, no, we were all failures because, it wasn't just his fault. Easy for her to say, the one that he actually was at her house and spending all the time with, like the other wives that didn't see him coming around and that he abandoned. I'm going to use that word because we know how much he loves it. But that he abandoned, they are the ones that are thinking, hey, where's my husband?
Yeah.
In marriage, whether it's this plural marriage, this polygamy, or just monogamy, one of the spouses can't just walk away and not be around and pretend that everything's fine.
Yeah.
Eventually, something will crumble.
Well, and I think for Janelle, too, because before he stopped like going to her house completely, even through COVID, she was so understanding and she's such a low maintenance wife. And Kody talked about the fact that they had their struggles in Vegas. They had a really good relationship. I think from everything I've seen, Janelle would say the same. And then in Arizona, she started being neglected as well. I think she's one of the wives who can say like, you're the failure because she wasn't asking a lot. Like, he wouldn't have had to do that much to keep Janelle. She even still says that she's not opposed to the idea of plural marriage, that it worked for her, that she didn't need a lot of attention. She just needed, like, respect and some time. And overall, I feel like she was the least needy wife out of all of the wives.
Yeah.
And so I think especially in her case, he was saying that, oh, well, neither one of us wanted to admit that we were the one who was like breaking it off, even though we agreed. And she's like, no, his ego didn't want to finally like let go of it. And I was done. But I just think that like he could have reconciled with Janelle for a long period of time there. And he just didn't care or want to. And so that one is like even more on him.
Oh, well.
I mean, they're all, I don't know.
Well,
we'll probably get into that more next week.
Yes, but even beyond all of that, even way beyond just the simple relationship, not simple, between Janelle and Kody, if Kody hadn't made the ginormous mistake of treating their kids, Janelle's kids, badly and poorly during COVID, if he hadn't done that, Janelle would have been way more forgiving. He put her in a place where she had to choose him or her kids and pick a side. She's going to pick her kid's side. I mean, he's barely coming around. She's hanging out. She's always with her kids. They're protecting her. She's protecting them. And then he comes in and says, choose me? Sorry, buddy. No, thank you. You're right. He put her in a position that she had to let him go. That was the only option.
Exactly. And so I just thought that she's so blunt. Even beforehand, they're all talking about how nervous they are. Robin's always super nervous for the one-on-ones. And you can just see every person's like personality coming out a lot. And Janelle's just like, like it's fine. It's all good. She goes, sometimes I have to like watch and remember that this is for TV and instead of just hanging out. And just Janelle's like, I don't care. I'm just going to be me. Yeah. And this isn't a me problem. And it's so clearly a Kody problem to her that it is, I don't know. It's just kind of fun to watch Janelle.
She just chuckles. Like when she sees something or a clip or Cody said this, Cody said that, she's just like, yeah.
That's how it was.
That's it. So unless of course Cody says something that is just a lie, then she just says, no, that's just not true.
That's not true. Yeah. But there's definitely going to be a lot more to come. Like I said, I think the cultural aspect, because Janelle barely touched on whether or not Cody's considered a failure, and the cultural aspect of that is going to be up next week for that. This one was really a ton about his relationship with Meri. Again, I feel like this is like ancient history at this point. Yep. Like Meri's been gone for what feels like forever. She probably feels like it's even longer. I don't know how soon they filmed this one-on-one, but I can only imagine, like, at this point, they're probably over it, too. Like, this was forever ago. Let's just be done with all these breakups, move on with our lives. And, yeah, it was just a lot about Meri and a lot about no one being able to live up to his relationship with Robin.
Yeah, this one-on-one is definitely kind of bringing it all together of, you know what, we're all separated now. We're no longer a family. Everything is just split apart at this point. So I have to wonder. I mean, I'm excited to see the other half of this one-on-one. Is it just going to be one more episode?
I think so. I think they typically do just 2 parts.
Okay. But I'm excited to see the rest of this. But if there's another season, I just don't know how they're going to do it. A show that's called Sister Wives. I mean, unless they just go with the idea of these were all sister wives and now they're not, right? I just don't know. That's
basically how this whole season was, though. You're just following them each individually, right? So you're seeing 4 storylines throughout the whole thing. Very limited interaction between each other, if any. Mostly between the other sister wives and stuff. But yeah, I don't know if they're going to stretch this out. They might all just, I don't know, like I said, they might just all be tired of it too.
Right. Maybe some rebranding in the future here.
Yeah. I would do an offshoot. Like you can follow like Meri and her bed and breakfast, or follow Janelle. And I mean, again, I guess if you're willing to follow each of those storylines separately, then maybe they rebrand and they do a show and they continue to follow those. We could cut Cody and Robin out. They're not that exciting. If I have to watch their kids roll their eyes at one more dinner, like I'm good. Like cutting that one out, and let's go follow the 3 sister wives who left.
Yep. But without Cody, where would the drama be, right? They got to have their drama.
It's true.
Well, thank you all so much for being here with us again, and we look forward to talking with you soon.
Talk to y'all soon.